These words come from Erwin Chargaff. It is this sense of mystery that, in my opinion, drives the true scientist. The same force, blindly seeing, deafly hearing, unconsciously remembering, that drives the larva into the butterfly. If the scientist has not experienced at least a few times in their life this cold shudder down their spine, this confrontation with an immense invisible face whose breath moves them to tears, they are not a scientist. The blacker the night, the brighter the light. Good morning and welcome to all who are present, whether in our building or on Zoom. I am Kathleen Brannan. My pronouns are she, her. Each Sunday we gather together as one to connect. So if those of you who are present would wave to those of you who are present online, we connect our communities together and to re-energize for the justice work we are called to do in this broken world. This morning we are asked to reflect upon the universe, its immensity, and our place within it all. So today we welcome Reverend Nell Newton from Austin, Texas. Reverend Nell is a lifelong UU, a 2015 graduate of Meadville Lombard, and most recently served as the assistant minister in San Antonio. Reverend Nell lives in Austin with her husband, where she tends a scraggly garden, probably like mine, 3 cats, and a flock of chickens. So now please rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn.
So y'all, I have a friend named Arthur who is a musician. And from some of y'all from the Wayback Machine, and you're wondering, is it that Arthur Brown? It's that Arthur Brown. Okay. Now this is a time where people who like to wiggle and dance and stomp, and they're welcome to come up because we're going to have a dance party. Right. Now some of you might feel like you just need to maybe stand and sort of dance where you are. Some of you might need to just sort of tap your foot, bob your head, and some of you might want to just come on up here and help me dance. Who wants to come help me dance? Come on up. All right. And I want you to know, I asked my friend Arthur, because Arthur wrote this really great song. Some of you might remember him as the god of hellfire. His grandchildren call him Grandfire. It's that sweet. I'm so glad to see you, Mark. So, and I asked Arthur, can I share this song with people of the church? And he said, sure. All right? So, but here's, it's a great rhythm, and here's how you might want it. You might go stomp, 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 to stomp, stomp, to stomp, stomp, to stomp. It's kind of like that. Can you do that? All right. And you can clap if you want, all right? Because Arthur is dancing and clapping too, all right? So let's hear from Arthur. Yeah. Yeah.
Wrath of nature, blessings of God, they're selling you building kits. I heard it all on my iPod, losing my marbles, finding my wit. Building from a wasteland ground, the future's all around us. All kind of people, every kind of place, trying new ways with chaos. Pulling down the apartment blocks, putting up the eco-frames. Toilets composting the old ideas of the entrepreneurial game. Roofs of mud and straw bale structures, wind-powered grassroots souls. Houses that breathe solar futures, power hungry for old-fashioned gold. Well, I'm not scared to breathe in the air. I know the unknown and the unknown knows me. Turn my face and stare into space. I know the unknown and the unknown knows me. to start. Statistics a weapon of war. Towers of power throw a shadow on our heart and keep the bruises sore. It's all one world, just one universe. There's only just one soul. There's only just one human race that will boldly go and go. Well, I'm not scared to breathe in the air. I know the unknown and the unknown knows me. Turn my face and stare into space. I know the unknown and the unknown knows me. Nature is our houses. Nature is our streets. There is a wild beauty underneath our everyday feet, weaving one web to guide us, to catch us when we fall. We're all just techno spiders, obey nature's call. Well, I'm not scared to breathe in the air. I know the unknown and the unknown knows me. Turn my face and stare into space. I know the unknown and the unknown knows me. I'm not scared to breathe in the air. I know the unknown and the unknown knows me. Turn a face out into space. I know the unknown and the unknown knows me.
Oh my goodness gracious, y'all are amazing. I'm sorry, we did this down in Houston and they were all, you understood the assignment. Children's.
Right, Molly needs it. Last spring, the All Souls Board approved a practice of splitting our offering plate every Sunday. In keeping with our mission, purpose, calling, we are pleased to be able to partner with organizations whose values dovetail with our own. This month, we are sharing the collection plate with the Accompaniment and Sanctuary Coalition of Colorado Springs. The Accompaniment and Sanctuary Coalition seeks to make the Pikes Peak region a safer place for immigrants by standing with and protecting immigrants facing obstacles in everyday life. This includes housing support, finances, healthcare, well-being, and apprehension, deportation prevention. All Souls is a designated sanctuary church. Our plate sharing will be directed to this effort, and this is sponsored by the immigration team of All Souls. So if you wish to make an online donation, be sure to select Share the Plate from the drop-down menu. If texting, indicate the dollar amount plus share, for example, $50 share. If your collection plate donation is a pledge payment, just write pledge on the donation envelope or the memo line on your check, and we'll apply your donation towards your pledge instead of the share. The offering will now be gratefully received, and thank you so much for the generosity of this congregation. Contemplating the Universe, a personal story. Stepping outside at dark 30, I see and feel the droplets of my warm breath in this cold night air. My companions a small band of spiritual, nerdy college students, are silent. We nod at one another and begin the walk to the chapel, illuminated by lanterns and candles a short distance away. As we walk, we listen to the pebbles and sandy soil crunching under our steps, the river close by, and other night sounds of the desert. Observing the great silence that is practiced daily by the monks of Christ in the Desert Monastery on the banks of the Chama River in the Chama Canyon, west of Abiquiu, New Mexico. When we arrived yesterday in the waning light, the monk who greeted us at the guest house also oriented us to the canyon and its towering walls with the giant rock shaped like an owl that stood as sentinel to the entrance of the canyon. This Cenobitic monastic life, emphasizing community prayer and manual work, had been in the canyon for 10 years when we traveled from Boulder to learn about them and practice their daily life for a weekend. That was in 1974. Much of their energy source for pumping water was solar powered. Solar powered electricity came much later to the monastery. They followed the ancient rule of Benedict with a detailed schedule for daily life, starting with vigils at 4 a.m. The morning bell would ring at 3:40 a.m. They observed a great silence from after Compline, the last prayer of the day. They prayed like 7 times a day at 7:30 in the evening until after Mass, or Eucharist as they called it, the following day, which was 7 in the morning. There was a quiet in the canyon that I had not heard before in my scant 19 years. So taking in this deep darkness and deep silence, I sensed how small I was compared to the immense walls surrounding us and the unencumbered view of the Milky Way above. Moments like these evoked a spiritual sense of awe, a pondering of the great mysteries surrounding us in this universe, and fueled my curiosity and love of science. I wonder became the first lesson I would teach to my students. 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, I wonder. We'd go outside and wonder. What makes, or who makes, the best scientists, I would ask. And they'd give me all kinds of answers, and I would say, you know what? It's 3-year-olds. Their curiosity, their questions, and their wonder of the world around them. Spend time with a 3-year-old and see the universe world through their eyes. And one of my favorite lessons in teaching science was trying to get them to understand astronomical distances, the solar system. And so we had an activity, and where my school was located, it was on the corner of 2 streets, and our playground was behind, and then there was a park further behind. So there was at a diagonal, there was a good two blocks. And so, yes, I would safely wise have another adult with me, but we'd have the large sun, and we'd have one of the children hold the sun at one corner, and then as a class, we would step off distances, Mercury, then Venus, then Earth, then Mars. We would get to Jupiter pretty close to where the park was, but we never made it to the outer planets because I would tell them, that one's maybe close to where the Wasson Stadium is, and then maybe, I'm not sure where, at that time Pluto was still a planet, but it may be even further, it's probably somewhere. And they would be in awe because we'd turn and look, that giant sun, they'd go, wait, it's becoming a dot as they walked further and further away. But it gave them that sense of, oh my gosh, the distances we read about in books You can't do it unless you experience something, a model. So that was the awe-inspiring becomes the teaching of science. And so I would invite you that as we age, invite a 3-year-old into your life, or let wonder just re-enter again and again and again.
Y'all are exceptionally gifted to have these musicians.
Oh,
I am in awe. Thank you. We are organic, animate beings, and like most organic, animate beings, we are generally very preoccupied with trying to remain animate. We're just trying to stay alive, create the next generation, and keep them alive. That is the simplest objective of an animate being. Everything else is just parsley on the plate, right? Culture. However, all of this is happening in a universe that also contains a lot of other bodies, each following their own laws in pursuit of their own objectives. The universe is a really busy place. Atoms crashing about, things breaking apart and fusing together, and at times it can feel as if the universe doesn't really have time for us. We are small, and it is vast. We can start to feel unimportant, maybe forgotten. We might feel pangs of existential loneliness, and this can lead to feelings of anxiety about the unknown. Do you remember the movie Castaway with Tom Hanks? Right? Okay, if you haven't seen it, spoiler alert. In the movie, Tom Hanks plays a man who is stranded on a small island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And among the few things that also wash up on the island is a Wilson volleyball. In his isolation and loneliness, the man draws a face upon the volleyball and addresses it as Wilson and begins to have conversations with it. We are a social species, and for the man on the island, talking to a volleyball allowed him to maintain his sense of self through narrative. Eventually, the man builds a raft, and in the process of crashing through the breakers to get to the open sea, Wilson falls off the raft. The man is distraught, and he cries in profound grief as he now faces a greater unknown in the open ocean. It is a wrenching scene. Now, this is the moment where I could summarize all of our history of creating gods as nothing more than just painting a face on the universe and having conversations with the face, but I won't. I won't, because I also cried when Wilson fell off the raft. For me, the relationship with a volleyball was legitimate, because even though Wilson was silent, Wilson kept showing up to the conversation. And Wilson became a container for the man's love. The island doesn't care. The ocean doesn't care. But Wilson was present, and that presence was essential to his sanity. We need love to survive, And when Wilson floats away, the man loses the one thing he has poured his love into. And that is why we are all crying as he floats off alone into the unknown. During the lockdown period of COVID, many of us were isolated on our own little islands, wondering if we would ever see another face again, wondering if we might die alone. Many did die alone, without a face nearby to reflect any sense of connection or meaning. Even now, some of us still carry fear and trauma from that isolation, that loss, that disconnection. We all felt so vulnerable when faced with a virus that only exists to perpetuate itself. Viruses have no parsley. We were staring into a disease that felt malevolent and pushed some of us into nihilism. Frankly, it warped all of us. None of us will ever be quite the same. Having felt that cold dread, we now know how real it can be. And the stars were of no help. Existential loneliness is part of the human experience, and the unknown can feel unconcerned or even malicious in the insignificance we feel when we look out into the rest of the all that is. However, looking out into space can go two ways. It can confirm our insignificance, or it can serve as a right sizing of our interconnectedness. It can interrupt our human-centeredness and provide a context that shows that you are here instead of you are everything. Right? You are no longer the pinnacle of all creation. And when that happens, when you realize that, you will become free. Free to get on with doing the best you can with what you've got as part of the larger all that is. This is a kind of freedom. And paradoxically, this freedom from being at the center of everything can help us become more resilient in our relationships. It doesn't all depend upon our being perfectly in control. And this resilience can help us survive the losses of our loved ones. It can help us cultivate a non-loving attachment. A loving non-attachment. Loving non-attachment. Okay, whew. So that, as Mary Oliver instructs us, when the time comes to let it go, we can let it go. This doesn't mean that the love is gone, because love persists. Love is as persistent as gravity and clouds. I turn my face and stare into space. I know the unknown, and the unknown knows me. As social beings, we will project our needs for social interaction onto the universe around us, because we know in our very DNA that we will not survive without relationship. Again, this is not a bad thing. It helps us to pay attention to all of the nature, all of the bodies in the universe. What makes us lonely is when we expect the universe to start acting like a human being back at us for our own comfort. And that's when we can feel alone and unloved by the gods that we have projected onto it. And this is so very sad and so very silly and so very human. So here's another option. Instead of asking the universe to be human and be disappointed when it doesn't return our calls, let it be its expansive self And then notice how it keeps showing up. Perhaps silently, perhaps like gravity and clouds, like love. The universe can be very persistent. The more we peer inwards and outwards into the spaces in between the atoms and the spaces between the galaxies, the more we see connection and pattern. And partly, this is because we are very good at recognizing patterns, and partly because those patterns are often quite familiar to us because we are made up of the same stuff. We recognize that for every act of creation and fusion, there is also an act of destruction and rearrangement. We recognize this because this is what we also do, for we are all a part of this great activity. Because even if you think that you are too small to be noticed, too disconnected to be important, please know that you are a part of the unknown, and it knows all about you. So go ahead, draw faces in between the stars, and tell stories about them to bring them closer, and have conversations with the wind, and then begin to listen to all the ways that the unknown is quietly and persistently saying, yes. May this be so, and blessed be, and amen. As you go out into this world, please carry these words with you. You carry in your bones the dust of stars. Your blood contains all the oceans of the world. Your breath is shared by all the planets to create our atmosphere. You are lovely. You are loving. You are loved. Go in peace.
This pretty planet spinning through space, your garden, your harbor, your holy place. Golden sun going down, gentle blue giant spin us around.